And here I go again with my fear. I'm like downplaying my own fear with it. Like, oh, it's not that big a deal, but it is a big deal. I'll wake up in the middle of the night, like, should I do this? And what I've come to find out is that I just fear making big decisions. And I feel like that on some level, I'm unworthy of making good decisions. And then I just kind of go down this, okay, what is worthiness and how can I feel worthy in this moment? And then usually I'll start cleaning or something,
Well, and even navigating, wait a second, when are the last 10 good decisions I've made?
Right. That's a
And
good
so
way.
it's like, then you're creating evidence that would not support that. Plus, we're all different at making decisions. And I think a lot of times.
Hey, it's Stephanie. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Unwritten. Today I have the amazing Christie Bemis here. Thank you so much. Did I say your name right? That's
You
the
did.
first question.
Yes, you did. Yeah, long E, Bemis. Mm-hmm.
And you have a substantial career in psychotherapy.
I do.
And you're out of Monona, is that correct? Or where?
Yeah, Monona, like the south side of Madison, Wisconsin. So that's where I practice out of.
And have you always been in that area?
No, I've only been there about 2 years. Before that, I was in the Fitchburg area for about 5 years.
Okay.
Before that, I was the school mental health consultant for the state of Wisconsin at DPI for a couple of years. And before that, I was out of central Wisconsin for about 15 years. So I
Wow.
had a long career in mental health for sure.
So you went to school for this, I'm assuming. Why? What was the reason why you wanted to get into this field? And obviously it's sustained you this long.
Yeah, I think, well, one, I think I've always been interested in self-help and like psychology, and it was one of my favorite things. My parents and my family probably gave me a good training ground for that, as many of our families do, when we're growing up. And so I've always been interested in relationships and just how people work and how people work together. It's been kind of I guess, a curiosity, but it's not what I went to school for.
Oh.
What I went to school for is I was going to become an art major, and I love art. And so as I got into school, the pressures that were on me of, being at UW-Madison and spending that kind of money on an education and coming out of it with an art major, and what are you going to do with that? And just a lot of like the fear-based things that your parents or people in your life kind of put on you. I started looking at, well, what else? What else could I do with this? And maybe I could be an art therapist, or maybe I could do something with art and combining it with something else. And I also felt really intimidated by other people. There was a lot of really great artists in my particular cohort, and we had to have our first show of that year. I was just really intimidating. And so I think out of those things, I started looking at what else could I do. I thought about joining the FBI at one time. I thought about doing something like maybe in the military. I didn't know, like going to law school. So playing around with lots of things. And I think it wasn't until I volunteered at a agency that specialized in runaways, teenage runaways, that I started getting like really good training there. They're still in existence today. And I just started getting really curious. And I had really influential female mentors at that facility, training in how to talk to a teenager that shows up at 2 a.m. at the runaway shelter or like on a crisis call. And so those women that were running that program really influenced me to look into going into social work, which I did for 9 years. And then from there, wanting to get my master's degree. So I've been to Madison, and then I went to UW-Milwaukee for my master's degree.
We have these mentors in our life, but we don't realize that they're mentors till
at the time,
till years later. And then when you show up, you just never know.
Yeah.
Who you're going to inspire or help along the way.
Yeah. And so I love that question because I love empowering women. And I think I share that story. Like, I think a lot of women, we think, how do they know what they're doing? They seem so confident and sure of like what they're doing. And so their path must have been this like straight, non-obstacle path to following your passion. It's like, no, I had lots of twists and turns, and sometimes I just had no idea what I was doing. And a lot of times younger women will ask me, well, how did you figure out what you were doing? It was through volunteering, because with volunteering, you got to try your hat at something without any kind of commitment. And so that felt really good to try something, try it on and see, like, can I see my life like this? So.
And you could.
And I could, yeah. And it's ever evolving, and I've done a lot of things with my career, but my passion really is what I'm doing now, which is being a psychotherapist in a private practice. I own myself. I feel like over the course of the years, I've proved to myself I'm unemployable, except to me, which is fine.
I'm going to stop you right there, because I've had so many amazing women on my podcast, and that's what they say.
I am.
I've gone through that too.
I love being a rebel, and being unemployable. Do you like that?
I do. There was a point when I really thought that I just wanted a paycheck. So I tried to get a job.
And the benefits.
And I couldn't. Mm-hmm. So that didn't feel great, but it gave me the power then to keep going. But
I love that.
I do think that, yes, if you say it in a positive way, I am unemployable because I don't live by the standards of anybody but myself, then for sure.
Yeah, and I think I have lots of creative ideas, and though I love collaborating with people, and I love collaborating especially with other women, I don't like being contained in like the box of what employment does, of you have to do it this way, and it just doesn't work for me. So I've had my own private practice now for 7 years. And I love it. Hopefully I'm my best CEO. Hopefully I'm my best boss. I give myself permission to have time off and take time for myself and find balance in work and life. And I don't find that being on a traditional 9-to-5 job, Monday through Friday, really allows me that opportunity to decompress, to have balance with my kids who are adults now, to have good partner and lovership with my partner. And so I kind of can create my own schedule.
Yeah. And that's the best part of all of it.
It is, yeah.
So let's talk about, because you are on your own and you are free to create your practice. What are some of the exciting things that you're working on right now?
The most exciting things I'm working on right now are the work that I'm doing with couples. And I've been working with couples across my whole career. But the way that I'm working with couples now, and I don't know if it has to do with my age, or I'm really working hard at being an authentic coupleship, and so then it translates to the work that I'm doing with my clients. But I feel like the work that I'm doing right now is just such a passion work. When I'm done with an hour or half day intensive with a couple, let's say, I'm so lit up and healed myself, through that work. And so that's mostly the work that I'm doing now. I've always worked in the realm of empowering women. I owned a company, Hot Pink University. I still do business as Hot Pink University, working with women, and I've owned that since 2010. But the work that I'm doing with couples and just really diving in deep to what creates safety in relationship. How do we play and have pleasure? How are we attuned to each other? How do we help each other realize our dreams? How do we communicate better? And how do we have better sex? That work I think that's how I'm going to end up my career. How I want to go out is on this red carpet of working with couples.
Yeah, because when we enter a coupleship, it's move in together, get married. If we're younger, have kids. If we're older, maybe it's combining families. And we never really think about sex, dreams, spirituality. and we change, especially us women. We go through huge changes.
I hope so.
And that is something that when you're excited about a new relationship, kind of doesn't get brought up right away. So what are some of the ways that you help couples navigate the hard times?
Yeah, and we all go through them. I mean, even in the partnership I have right now, we've had really hard times where we've taken a look at each other and had to make a really big decision. Do we stay or do we go kind of thing. I myself am divorced, and then I found myself dating in my 50s again, and what I was looking for in my 50s is very different than what I was looking for when I was in my 20s. I think the key pieces are, I talked about safety, play, and pleasure, and I have an assessment that I just created this last year and launched, which is called the Sparks Assessment. It covers all those areas, 6 key areas. Mostly what I find is when I'm working with couples, I just have them sit and talk about an issue at first in front of me. And then I pause and I have them stop, and I can point out their patterns of what they entered into maybe in year 2 or 3 or 4 of their relationship. And maybe they're on year 20 or maybe they're on year 5, I don't know. And we see these patterns of then I said and then he said and then I said and then he said. And when we look at the pattern as my client and not the people, like you 2 people in front of me are perfectly reasonable, lovely human beings. But the pattern you've co-created together is the dysfunction between the 2 of you. That can be really empowering when you can find a pattern between people. So an example would be the more your partner pours him or herself into work, the more you beg for attention by calling repeatedly or coming up with emergencies at home. And the more you call repeatedly and come up with emergencies at home, the more your partner pulls away, isolates, and gets entitled anger. And then the more you withdraw and close off. Do I have that right? And when I ding, ding, ding on that with a couple, they're like, that is exactly what we're doing. And so when we can try to create different patterns in that, like what are some other ways you can get attention? What are some other ways you could give that partner attention before they are trying to seek attention? When we can look at those patterns and change them, it really creates a lot more harmony for the couple and a lot less dysfunction or need to repair, hurts or emotional turmoil that we put each other through. And so that's kind of what the work is right now, at least that I'm doing.
Right, because when we enter into a relationship, we're taking all of our own trauma, all of our own baggage. Yeah. And if we are not actively working on that, we're just repeating the patterns of our parents and our childhood. And I read this thing one time that we're basically children walking around, adult children.
We totally are.
Like 7-year-olds.
We totally are, yeah.
And that to me makes life a little more fun. That we have to play like we're little kids too.
Well, and the thing is, we have to play like we're little kids too with each other. But we often fight like little kids too. So the rule that I often have with my partner is one of us has to be the adult at a time. At least don't have us both deteriorate into our 12-year-old selves at the same time, because then we're really in trouble, right? We're slinging words at each other and doing the things. And so when we can take turns, deteriorating and not deteriorate at the same time, that sometimes works. But yeah, playfulness and partnership is super, super important.
And you mentioned sex. So let's talk about that a little bit. How do you help couples navigate sex? Because, it can be a power struggle. Mm-hmm. It can be a health struggle. There's so many different aspects that go into sex and pleasure and body image as we age. There's so many pieces to this.
There's so many pieces. And oftentimes our sex education as couples for women is often the cautionary tale of like, don't get pregnant, don't get an STD. keep your legs closed, don't give it away too fast, right? Like that's the education we receive. We don't receive education on your anatomy truly, how it works. We don't receive education on pleasure and how to find out what brings you pleasure. We don't receive any of that. But just on the opposite side, if you're in like a heterosexual relationship, right? Men receive different messages. It's more being a conquest, performance. It's around porn. That's where men get a lot of their education, or locker room talk, right? And so we're both coming together in this like shame repressed state, and we're trying to function as a healthy couple. And we have all these really shameful messages or wrong messages or repressive messages. And so that's usually what couples are coming in with is help me communicate better with my partner, and how can we have better sex? And a lot of times how we're having sex is how we do everything. And so if we're living in shame, it's how we're in sex, it's how we're living in shame just in general. And so the work that I do with couples is really helping support what would a more authentic expression of your sexuality. And it doesn't have to be the same as your partner. And I think now more than any other time, we have resources, we have material, we have technology. There's the internet, access to getting better education. There's people like me doing the work, and other people out there that have been my mentors doing the work. And so at no other time, I don't think, in any time I've been on this planet, have we gotten better access to resources. And we just need to be willing, I guess, to take those resources and use them.
And let's take a step back.
Yeah.
You went through a divorce.
I did.
And then you started dating again. Mm-hmm. I went through a divorce at 40, started dating again. And it was kind of awful at first because, of course, I have all my shit together.
Of course you do.
And some of the guys I went on dates with, not dating, but, by the time we hit a certain age, everyone's kind of stuck in their ways. At least that's what I've found out. I did end up meeting the guy I've been with now for about 2.5 years, just randomly on a walk here in town. Mm-hmm. Because what I had decided is that I wasn't going to date because I was just going to make myself happy. Mm-hmm. And happiness to me was waking up in the morning, going for a walk. And that's how I met him. What kind of advice do you have?
Amazing. That's a great story.
It's a really good story. There's a lot more to it.
Doing something you love, and you met somebody else doing something they love. That's great.
So, especially right around menopause, a lot of women do get divorced. Mm-hmm. They realize that they've checked all the boxes in life, and they're still coming up empty. And the only way that they feel that they can find that fullness is to kind of break free and start over.
Yeah.
How do you kind of help women through that process of navigating relationships after divorce and dating after divorce and dating after menopause? And there's so many good questions that are coming up here.
Yeah.
But when they come to you, how do you start that process with them?
Yeah, I think what's cool is I'm divorced, and I was divorced when I was 50. And so dating again at 50 is a huge, undertaking and challenge, and your body's not the same, I think first I want to start with a call out to men and in heterosexual relationships with this question, because at no other time in our history, men are being called to be more. And they're not just providers and resources, right? They're being called to be emotionally connected, to understand their emotions more, to be emotionally available in relationships. They're being called to be lovers, to have sex differently than maybe what you've been raised. And so there's this call out of when I dated, one of the biggest things on first dates was, can this partner meet me? And I wanted a partner, not a project. So I wasn't like, oh, is this a good man that I could turn into a good partner? It was like, no, you have to, if you're out there dating, be doing the work. The reason that you're still single or you're not in a relationship right now, also like look in the mirror. At least I had to after my divorce, like look in the mirror of like, what did I contribute to my relationship, that it wasn't all his fault, right? Mm-hmm. I was a contributing member of what our demise was over the years. And so the men I chose to date when I went out dating had to be reflective. I had to hear language around if I wish I would have done this differently, or since my divorce, my therapist has said, it's like, ooh, they're doing some work on themselves. Okay, you're in therapy, or you've taken a workshop, or you've read an article, like listen to podcasts. I don't care what it is, but if you're dating again as a woman, if you hear those things, that is a good sign. It is a good sign that the partner that you're dating is at least trying to be somewhat self-reflective and growing. And that's, I mean, I don't know about you, but I want that in partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Most women I talk to are like, yes, I want that. You're not dating to check the boxes anymore. Is this person going to be a good father?
Right.
Because for me personally, my kids have a father, right?
Yeah.
Would I like my kids to like my partner? Yes. But my kids are not dating my partner. I am. So that was a huge difference of like, yeah, I want my partner to get along well enough with my kids to make life pleasant for me, but I'm not looking for another like co-parent with me.
Right.
Especially my kids, they're old. They're in their 20s. My other is, do they have the ability, and I would tell women that are starting to date, do they have the ability to be erotically intelligent with me? And there were key signs. Even on the first date, I would start talking about my own sexual journey of like the journey I had been on for the last decade personally. And if they didn't yuck it, that was a good sign. You know, if they were like, that's amazing. You went on what sexual wellness retreat? You did what? That's amazing. Like those are all good cues, right? Of like, you're open to talking and having a shame-free dialogue with me. And recently, Jaya and her partner Ian came out with an erotic blueprints test. I don't know if you've taken it.
No.
Okay, so the erotic blueprints test is like love languages for the erotic. So,
Okay.
you know, like love languages are physical affection, verbal affection, quality time, acts of service, and gifts. And I also add a sixth one, which is give me space. Because for me personally, that's like my love language.
I think that's a really great love language.
So I often like talk with people about that, like give each other a little space. That's always like lovely. But for the erotic blueprints, we all have erotic portals in to what our turn-ons are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that it has to be the same. Just like love languages, I don't have to have the same love language as my partner to be able to communicate together and like give each other what we want. It's the same with erotic blueprints. I don't have to have the same erotic portals in. What's important is my partner knows what mine are and I know what my partner's are. And so how can I meet you there? How can I know what yours are? And so in dating, what I did is I would ask people on the first date if they would be open to taking the erotic blueprints.
That's a good way to...
It's a screening tool.
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
Are you going to be open to this? And then at the second date, if there was a second date, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. You know, let's, what was yours? What was mine? And then what does that mean for us?
Yeah.
And that was really key in dating somebody that was at least open to, right?
Yep.
A different experience. Like you already tried, most of the people I dated, I don't know about you, were already married at least once. If they're able to like take a look back and go, what wasn't working, what did not work, and including erotically, like how do I want to show up erotically different with you? Then, oh, that's perfect. Your cat is coming in right at the right time. Then how can we take this conversation to the next level.
Right.
And that was really a screening tool for me. At least one of the screening tools was, are you willing and able to talk about yourself and reflect on like who you are as a partner? And are you willing to look at new information and have an intelligent conversation with me about it?
Right.
Yeah.
I find that intelligence in general is super attractive, where
I do too.
when I was in my 20s, it was more about the good looks and,
Yeah.
the bad boy and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And now it's like, let's just have a great conversation and let's learn something from each other.
Yeah.
That's a
like,
huge...
does your partner listen to podcasts and you can talk about it? Does your partner have, like my partner journals?
Oh, that's really nice. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, what are you journaling about? Reading books. Like, that's called sapiosexual, actually.
Okay.
When you're attracted to somebody that has like intelligent conversations, like that might be your like turn on.
That's my love language, kind of. Yeah.
A turn on. Just like,
for sure.
like, wow, that's, that gets my attention.
Yeah.
Right.
I hope you're not allergic to cats.
Not at all. I often attract cats.
Oh, that's great. So we've talked about relationships. Mm-hmm. We've talked about dating. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about mental health for ourselves.
Okay.
And especially as women, because as we age, again, there's a huge part of me that wants to be more in a leadership role because of the lessons that I've learned. And I get to this point where I'm like ready to step into my power, but I stop right before things get too scary. Mm-hmm. And we're never guaranteed tomorrow.
Yeah.
So how can somebody like me and other women that have these great ideas step into their power fully so that fear just breaks free?
Yeah.
I know it's a big question.
Would you be willing to share what fears come up for you that stops you?
The fear of looking foolish is a big one.
I have that same one. Yep.
That's probably the biggest one. And who is she?
Who does she think she is?
Yes.
Right?
Those are the two that come up.
So the fear of failure for some women, the fear of who in the world does she think she is? And I know I have that one. The fear of judgment of others. For me, when I have the fear of, and I have the same fears, even though it might look like I'm stepping out there, stepping into my power, maybe 2 or 3 steps further than the next woman, but not 100 steps, because I still have the same sabotaging. Like, I think the biggest fear I had as I entered into my 50s was relevance, because I had been out there, I felt like kind of pioneering for about a decade, and then technology really caught up, and other people started doing similar things to what I had been doing, what I thought was like new and innovative. 10 years ago, it was like, everybody's doing that now. And so there was this big like irrelevance that I kept thinking of. So I think you hit it clear. We only get this one life. And like, who are we trying to really impress? I mean, for me, I've just learned I'm trying to impress myself. I'm trying to be available and impress the people that are closest to me. But everybody else is like just noise out there.
Right.
And we worry so much about the people who matter least in our life, when really we should be worrying about the people that matter most. And the first one on that is ourselves. And so, I think moving through those fears and finding out what specifically they are, when you get to that place where you're making a post and you stop, what's stopping you? What thought is stopping you? Because 90% of what we fear like never happens, never comes true. So that's kind of how I move through that is I'm always working with a coach of some kind who's helping support and reflect back to me that mirror of like helpful. What I'm fearing. And so I don't think we have to go it alone as women, whether that's working with a coach or it's working with a therapist or it's working with somebody that can reflect back to you. Maybe it's a trusted friend that you can voice those fears to, and then they can reflect back. Christie, why would you even care what your second cousin from your dad's side of the family is even thinking at this point, right? Why would you even care about that person? You wouldn't take your most precious possession and put it in their care. Why would you take yourself and put that in their care to navigate for you?
Yeah, that's so beautiful that you say it that way.
Yeah.
I always get stuck in, okay, I know the fear is trying to teach me something. Mm-hmm. What is the lesson in this fear?
Yeah.
And I can get only so far in that process because fear could be teaching. For instance, I am moving to a new apartment in a few months and I get stuck in this fear of should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? And it's exhausting. And this is something fairly small, right? And here I go again with my fear. I'm downplaying my own fear with it. Oh, it's not that big a deal, but it is a big deal. I'll wake up in the middle of the night, should I do this? And what I've come to find out is that I just fear making big decisions. And I feel that on some level, I'm unworthy of making good decisions. And then I just kind of go down this, okay, what is worthiness and how can I feel worthy in this moment? And then usually I'll start cleaning or something,
Well, and even navigating, wait a second, when are the last 10 good decisions I've made?
Right. That's
and
a good
so
way.
It's then you're creating evidence that would not support that. Plus, we're all different at making decisions. And I think a lot of times, especially when I work with women, they think that if they're slow decision makers, there must be something wrong with them. Mm-hmm. But there's two ways to make a decision fast. And I have some friends who can do that. And I admire them. But I'm a slow decision maker too. So I totally get that. What if instead of calling it fear, you reframed it and said, I take my time. I'm deliberate. I look at all the angles. I don't know if you've ever done any work with human design.
No, but you're probably the fifth person to bring it up.
Okay, so then it's a sign to do something. I'm an emotional decision maker.
I would say I'm probably emotional.
It sounds like you are. And so I really feel into things. And sometimes I really even feel into, I'm making a big decision right now to purchase my mother's property in central Wisconsin, my parents' property, and starting a retreat center up there, or an Airbnb, or just something, keeping it in the family. And I had to literally put myself there for about a month off and on, be in the space, cleared out of my parents' space so I could really feel into, would this ever feel authentic for me to run a retreat and have a retreat here? So you're probably similar in that you have to go to the actual place and space.
I've gone twice now.
And be can I feel myself in here? And
yes.
If it's leaning more towards yes, you can, then that's how you make decisions. So
yes,
I would say give yourself more of a break and
that's
trust that
true.
that's your time frame. And we need all kinds of decision makers, the women that make really fast decisions. I love, they're often on the cutting edge. But the downside, the shadow side of making fast decisions is sometimes you end up somewhere and you're like, oh, crap, how did I get to here, And so we need both types, I make fast decisions when something's annoying to me. Or I just want to make, do I want that or that expensive car? That one. I'm just going to, I don't like test driving. I don't like doing all the things. Mm-hmm. I kind of generally know what kind of car I want to drive. And I'll make really quick decisions on those things because I don't like wasting my time.
Yes.
But I slow down on a lot of the more emotional based decisions that really need my attention and time to feel into it.
Yeah, and that's so true. There's different ways to navigate change.
Yeah.
We can navigate it quickly, slowly, whatever pace feels right.
Right.
And I do feel like if we are, like you said, you didn't say it exactly, but we are our hardest critic.
I think so.
Because, I'm not making this decision fast enough. I made it too fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I can kind of sit with decisions and I hear other people talk about some of the hard things they've had to go through and the decisions they've made, there's never a right or wrong because there's no such thing. First off, they're all just lessons. But the thing is, I wish I could be in that space all the time where it's like, okay, whatever happens is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing what feels right for me.
Yeah.
And it's just the hardest thing as a woman because I think about my kid and I think about my dog who likes to look outside at the window and see cars driving by. He's not going to see the cars. And oh my gosh, we do the craziest thing. So you take everybody
else's like needs into consideration.
Yes.
And I think that we're trained as women, socialized as women to do that. It's also partly our like neuroscience that we have a lot of neural pathways of caretaking as women.
Yes.
And so that's important, I think, to weigh other people's, other beings in the decision process. But in the end, your people and your beings around you are going to be the happiest when you're the happiest.
Right.
And for women, and I know a lot of women out there that are doing amazing things and they're holding back. Here's what I know, what I've learned most about all the incredibly like important things in my life. It has been learned through other women being willing and daring and bold enough and sometimes audacious enough to share their stories. And so women who take the risk to be vulnerable, share their truest stories, their biggest fears, their biggest shame story, right, to each other. They've been like the leaders for me of like what I need to be doing. And I think sometimes that does hold us back. We don't share our vulnerability enough when we are launching something or writing something or producing something. And I think we need to. There was a time early on in working with like the Hot Pink University work that I was doing with women and women's empowerment, where myself and two of my partners were driving home. And one of the women in the car started sharing about some struggles that she was having with her teenage son or daughter. And then the other woman in the car started sharing her struggles. And then I started sharing mine. And I remember getting back into town and all of us looking at each other, feeling closer, but also saying, why don't we do this more often? Like, no, I'm not the 100% best person in the world or parent. And to know that you're not either, and you're not either, how empowering is that for me? It gives me permission to fail a little. It gives me permission to be a little bit more real. And it gives all of us like a big learning opportunity of like, we're doing it okay enough. Can we just be okay with that?
Right. That's the biggest lesson I think that we've brought up is just now, is how can we just be okay? Being okay. We don't have to be perfect.
Right.
We don't have to present ourselves as size 2, perfect hair.
God, I hope not.
Or
I'm in trouble. I love food too much.
I do too. And we just need to embrace all of ourselves and not hide away from the really good stuff and the really bad. It seems like we want to just be in the middle, status quo, and it's probably more of like Midwest nice type of thing. We don't want to rock the boat. We're very calm water. And the truth is that the life stuff is really at the top and the bottom. That's where we learn the most. The middle is comfortable, but it's not. Yeah. It's not growth.
No, it's not I don't think it's where we're meant to hang out. It's definitely not where we're meant to do our greatest life work.
Right.
You know, publishing a book that you want to publish. That's not like middle. That's like bold, right?
That's why it's on that's why I don't talk about it very often.
I'm glad that you talked about it today.
I'm surprised I am because
just speaking about it, just speaking it and like languaging it, right? And centering it, attending to it will help it grow.
Yeah.
And somebody else out there listening either has written a book or, wants to write a book, and they're either inspired by you or they have resources for you.
Right.
So when we don't speak our dreams, when we don't share it with the world, that's vulnerability to share it. And then it connects you with what you need.
Right. But the scariest thing is, at least for me, is to voice my biggest dreams out loud.
Yeah.
It's so, when we're kids, it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you have all these big dreams, and it's so encouraged. And then sometimes
it's not, right?
Right.
Like when we speak our biggest dreams, I think we learn, don't speak your biggest dreams.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was little, I wanted to be an archaeologist. That was completely encouraged by my social studies teacher. Mm-hmm. In fourth grade, I said I wanted to publish a book when I was an adult. And my fourth grade teacher said, well, you have to have life experiences, Christie, to think that you would do that. Novelists have life experiences. I'm sure in her, whatever wisdom it was, she was trying to be supportive, go out there and have life experiences, maybe, I don't know. But what it did to me as a kid was, by that time in fourth grade, my parents had already divorced. I feel like I had already experienced a lot in my lifetime at fourth grade. And what I really needed to hear is, go get them. Yeah, you could totally publish a book. You should totally dream into that.
Yes.
And what would you want to write about? Follow-up questions would have been way more encouraging. But in that moment, I just learned, don't share your dreams with adults unless you really trust them.
Yeah.
Right? And then how does that perpetuate as we move on? And how many of us have been in an art class and somebody has said, that's not how you do it. And so then now I'm not an artist anymore. And it's no, we're all artists.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an artist. And my parents said, no, you should be a nurse and then you can marry a doctor. So at some point I thought that's what I needed to do.
Yeah. And in their genius mind as a parent, they're protecting you. They're doing what they think to be a good parent, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Protecting you from yourself. But yeah, how do those messages then later translate to stifling and limiting and...
Right, which is why therapy and coaching is so important.
Yeah.
Because unless we pause in these thoughts that are in our head, I shouldn't be an artist, I shouldn't do this, and we don't grow.
We don't. Yeah. Yeah. So, I think that's why I really feel passionate and love my work. And I know for myself, I've been doing a lot of inner child work and what that looks like, and that's been super healing. And so even though I'm doing the work with other people, for other people, I'm doing the work on myself too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still a student.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to be a massage therapist, and I would heal along with the people.
Yeah.
If I was having a shoulder problem, I could work on their shoulder and heal.
Or hopefully even get your own massages when you needed them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just an energy that comes from helping other people, though.
Yeah.
That you can't replace that with.
That is true.
With anything.
Yeah.
So how can people follow along on your journey?
Yeah.
And especially with maybe some retreats coming up in the near future.
I know. Yeah. So if you follow me at my name, Christie Bemis, which is spelled ChristieBemis.com, that's where you can access my Sparks assessment. It's where you can access events and workshops. I'm doing a couples workshop in Madison in a couple weeks.
And the Sparks assessment, that's free, right?
That's free. Yeah. And it's a version of the 6 areas I talked about, a shortened version that's free. And you take the assessment, and right after you take it, you get your results right away as a couple. And then there's resources connected to it. And so that's a good entry-level place to kind of follow the work that I'm doing. And then workshops that I'm doing, a collaboration with another woman in Madison on inner child, which is I do women's talking circles once a month on sex. And so there's lots of ways that you can follow and get resources and feel supported. And then we'll hopefully be done with our retreat center in August, and we're doing an open house, and then we'll be hosting retreats, and also other people that want to host retreats. It'll be set up for that. So
that's right around the corner.
that is right around the corner. I feel it. Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Pressure and joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do anything that doesn't like light me up and bring me joy.
Yeah, to put yourself out there on another level.
Yeah.
Again, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was great with you and Jake and the cat. What's the cat's name?
That's Leo.
Leo. So
he's still sitting around here.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to be interviewed, is
with
having pets around.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.